this is the podcast. I mean, I don't know how else it wants to start it. This is the pilot. This is the
People are like,
pilot.
who are these dudes?
Who are these guys
Who are these jokers?
with these islands on their shirt? Who's that? Who's that in your shirt? Who's that?
Prodigy from Mobb Deep. Rest
So
in peace.
dope, rest in
His
peace.
anniversary.
Shook ones.
Or no, his birthday rather. I think he would have turned 50th if he was still alive.
Wow.
50 if he was still alive.
Too much legends are dying early. Like,
I mean, yeah, we don't even want. We're not gonna start there. That is Timothy Bain.
But call me Timmy.
Timmy, you gotta say it in all caps.
You gotta say it with at least.
It's like MF Doom.
Minimum 3 years.
It's like MF Doom. It's written in all caps all the time. It's Timmy Bain. That's him for the Nassau Bahamas. I'm Bryan Fonseca from
Fonseca. I always say it so proper. Fonseca.
You know, Puerto Rican.
I always think of the mafia and I get to see you in the,
Puerto Rican from New York City, and New Yorkican as we call it around here.
New Yorkican.
That's right. Okay. This is the BahamaRican Boys. This is the premiere, but a little bit of a pilot. This is going to be a short, just intro. To because people are probably confused.
Brian keeps saying short. I feel like we're gonna go for at least half an hour. Like he keeps saying short. So
under promise, over deliver. but Timmy, we're gonna get into this, but allow me to briefly just sort of give a little more info as to how we even got to this point, right? Yeah. So basically, what had happened was, as they say, no, but really, this is. I think the first of its kind. Like, I don't know if you could figure out or come across another show that has a host from the Bahamas and another one who's a New Yorkican, who's a Puerto Rican from New York City, on a network that is based around covering South Florida sports and is expanding a little bit, evidently, as we're sitting here, talking about this.
But even though we aren't in South Florida, we are.
Yeah, right. Look, there a lot of people that look like you and I are out in South Florida.
I always like to brag about how majority of the people who made Miami City were like, it's like 60 and 70 of them are Bahamians. So like, I'm basically, from Miami myself.
Yeah. So this is gonna be fun. This is how this came about. This show. So because there are people who probably follow your work in the Bahamas. Yeah. And are like, what is he? How do you get to this point? There are people probably following me from New York. Remember me from covering the Nets and things of that nature. And it's like, oh wait, he's on what they're gonna call a Miami Heat network or whatever the case. Because New Yorkers don't know what this is, but we're gonna educate them a little bit. So, Timmy. You grew up a Miami Heat fan, yes?
From 2002, so that was the year Karan Butler got drafted.
Oh,
it was a year right before Wade got drafted. Like I was like, okay, so I love basketball, and my mother was she grew up being in basketball, and she liked the Lakers because Rick Fox, who was a Bahamian, born in Canada, but went to school there. He's in the Lakers, so my mother was like a Heat Laker fan, so shock. But I was like, half the almost is either a Boston fan or a Laker fan. So I wanted to like just be someone else. So then I was like, okay, the Heat, half an hour flight away. Let me just pull for this brand new team. Because at that point, the Heat was only about 11, 15, but 89. So I just I said, I'll choose the Heat to be my team. And that was the year they drafted Caron. And then you had Lamar Odom came in. Then the next year they drafted Wade. And that's all she wrote.
Right. So that's his Miami Heat story. For me, it's a lot more complicated. So I grew up in New York. So that means by default, you're watching a lot of Knicks games on TV, et cetera, et cetera. My older brother hates the Knicks. So he became a Net fan, hates the Knicks, can't stand up. He became a Net fan, was a season ticket holder for about 10, 11 seasons or so. I grew up going to a lot of Net games. Some Knicks games, when he would take me, whatever, he would always want to see them lose, but whatever the case may be. I grew up going to a lot of Net games. I was outside. I was there during the 12 and 70 season or whatever that was. Ouch. I was there during the Devin Harris days and the Brian Scott.
I always remember that Devin Harris shot. That's stupid from the bubble.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Really? The game winner from like...
Yeah, the half-court game winner, Zoran Planinic and all this shit, right? So basically, I didn't have a favorite team.
Yeah.
Probably, first of all, throughout my entire sort of life coming up, the Heat have always been good, trying to be good, or just not tanking, right? Yeah. So
except for 07, we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah. Michael Beasley though. But yeah. You grow up and you have this level of respect from afar. Also keep in mind, as you mentioned, Dwayne Wade, that was the favorite player of a lot of my friends back then. Okay. Yeah. A lot of them. and one of mine as well. So basically, you fast forward to, when I'm in college. So this is like 2012, 2016, between those years. So I'm giving away my age right off the bat. And I'm noticing like the Heat just have this propensity to get players that I like, right?
Yeah.
And I'm noticing it more afterwards.
Hashtag the culture.
I'm noticing it more afterwards. Then they get Jimmy Butler. And let me tell you something, right? This is when this whole show idea, the beginning was when the Heat got Jimmy Butler in 2019.
Right.
Now, so this is not going to be a Miami Heat show, but we're sort of walking you into like what this is going to be, okay? Because this is going to be a whole bunch of, we're going to touch a lot of different ground here, and not all of which is super important, but it's going to be fun and entertaining. Jimmy Butler comes to the Heat. The Heat have no cap space and somehow pull that off with, Hassan Whiteside, Josh Richardson, Myers Leonard, and a first-round pick.
I still know. You're talking about that.
We're going to talk about Myers Leonard here. So basically, they get Jimmy Butler, and I'm like, dude, like, so Pat Riley's doing this again. And me and Timmy, first of all, we've been friends for years through a mutual friend.
Yeah,
I don't even know where Gail is, but shout out to
her. She's always on Facebook, actually. So she's on Facebook and Instagram. So when we post this, I'm going to tag her in it, because without Gail, this wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Look, and that. So we got connected like 2014, 15, or whatever.
Right. And I just really started my media career like that.
And people should know that we met in person multiple times.
Yeah, a few times.
Multiple times, because you've come up here to cover NBA draft prospects front of Bahamas, which we'll get into our media experience too, but slow walking the dog here, and this story's going on for a minute, but look, we're only 7 minutes in, so we're having a good time.
We have time. Like Bryan was saying, it's gonna be short. Hey, we got here all night,
Under promise, over deliver. So basically, Jimmy Butler comes to the Heat, and that's where I'm like, yo, and I was the dude before that. Before that, I was the only one in New York, like in all of New York City. I'm like, yo, the Heat should be starting Bam Adebayo. Nobody up here is really watching Heat games. I'm like, the Heat should be starting Bam. They win more with him. There are numbers to back this up.
Do you remember when we just started Whiteside and Bam together? That was really disgusting.
Yeah.
That turned my stomach.
This was the end of Hassan Whiteside's tenure, and I remember when I was covering the Nets. I'm jumping around too much, but follow me here. When I was covering the Nets and Nets Daily, that's one of the places I was at. Not the biggest one, not the smallest one, just one of the places. Because a lot of freelancing in this industry. We'll get to that in a second. 2016 to 2019, I was the guy writing they should trade up for Bam Adebayo, the Nets. I was high on him in college. And this was before he became like the point center Bam. And now he's sort of reverted back to like Kentucky Bam a little bit.
Right, yeah.
I was the guy saying like, yo, this was like my favorite player in that draft class, one of them in 2017. Obviously, really like Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, et cetera, et cetera. But Bam was sort of my guy from that draft class. So they had him. They had Jimmy Butler in 2019. They had two of my favorite players on that squad, et cetera, et cetera. Was high on Hero, whatever. So I just started following the Heat every day. 5 Reasons Sports was sort of the destination for that, right? Shout out to Ethan, Greg, Alex, and everybody else at the crew. I was listed, like me and Timmy were sending each other episodes, listening to them. So I just became
I agree. They should be starting about like Baum should have passed the ball.
Right. And I remember us talking about that before they even got Jimmy Butler. And I was sort of engulfing myself every like so often with Heat stuff regularly. And Timmy and I were talking every single day about this team, basically. And then, we just realized we also have a lot of other stuff in common, et cetera, et cetera. So, Narcos, we're going to be talking about that. Sports, entertainment, all those things. Timmy, you could tell them, like, what before we get into our sort of personal bios, what we're going to be covering.
Yeah, so, like, a lot of my downtime consists of watching basketball, watching Netflix, Disney Plus, watching movies, and boxing. So, like I say, every day we literally our group chat is basketball stuff. Take like undercover, because we also in a fantasy group too. So fantasy takes. Narcos is the greatest intro of all time. Like that's the one intro on Netflix I actually listened. I watched like 3 episodes today of the new season. I didn't stop. I said play.
Never skip it. Never skip the Narcos intro.
And I think I put you on the top boy. And I suddenly feel like you gotta watch that show.
Oh my God, where's season 4? I want season 4 top. We're going to talk about all that stuff, sports, entertainment.
So Right. So I have my own podcast, Who That, right? Interview like Bahamian artists, but I have all this other stuff I want to talk about too. But it doesn't really fit my podcast of Who That because I want my podcast to focus on Bahamian entrepreneurs doing their thing. So I'm like, okay, I need to get a next pod. And I think so. Just going back to when you started, Jimmy came to the Heat. I came to New York for like 2 days. Like it was an unplanned trip. I came with a friend. She made some music. I said, Brian, I'm in town. He's like, man, we're recording. They come to the studio. So I came and I made a prediction on In How to Tell podcast that the Heat would make the finals. This was pre-bubble. This was early in the season. Jimmy was putting up stupid numbers. I was like, but the Heat are going to make the finals.
And I was the guy in New York. I told Dexter after they got Jimmy Butler. I remember. So we're going deep into it. But Dexter is my co-host of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. My Twitter bio is there at AHTT podcast. Ain't Hard to Tell if you listen to hip hop. It's a sports, hip hop, and social issues, I guess, podcast because we talk about
shout out to Dex, my Caribbean brother, from the
Grenada. Yes, from Grenada. But I was on that podcast telling Dexter, yo, the Heat can get to the finals. And people were saying that, yo, they're not even going to get to the playoffs. And then they ended up getting to the finals of 2019. So basically, let's get into our experience now, right? As far as what I do, and I'll start us off here, Timmy, then I'm going to toss it to you. Mm-hmm. So basically, my media experience goes back to 2014-ish, right? So I was still in college and I was already freelancing. We don't have to get too into like the college stuff or whatever, but I've done a lot of stuff in terms of writing, being on camera, talking, producing, hosting, et cetera, on places like MSG Networks out here in New York City. For those of you who are unfamiliar, they are the company that airs the Knicks games, New York Knicks, New York Rangers, New York Islanders, New Jersey Devils, if you're into hockey. I'm Puerto Rican, so like not all of us are into hockey like that, but I actually did a story about how hockey's growing in Puerto Rico, so I shouldn't say that. That's one of the places. Slam Magazine I've done some stuff with, and a bunch of other different. Right now, I'm doing stuff with FanDuel, a website called Latino Rebels. So to my Latino homies listening to this, you can go check out some of my stuff there with sports and some social commentary as well, where really sports and race intersects. The Ain't Hard to Tell podcast, which I mentioned on here. And if you have a good eye, you can see behind me over my left shoulder. There's a
branding.
Yeah. Books over there. I'm also a fiction author. That is Hidalgo Heights, The Victims Are Taking Up Space, a story that, talks about just sort of a lot of the things that we've experienced as a country in 2020 through the lens of something that's I call realistic fiction that is I think relatable to a lot of different people from a lot of different cultures. I just happen to center it around Latinos and some Black folks because in New York City, that's predominantly what it is in certain neighborhoods. So as I mentioned, SB Nation also with Nets Daily, I've done some stuff with, and just a whole bunch of places. Like my LinkedIn, I'm not bragging. This is actually a pain in the ass. My LinkedIn resume is very long. And I'm trying to keep it to a page as best as I can, but it's very difficult. But and as far as 5 Reasons Sports goes, like we're gonna add this on there too. But I am somebody who from all the way from New York City, and I think Ethan's a New York native originally too. Just sort of grew into a fan of the network, and I'm identifying people for me personally that I want to work with that are doing great things that I think are going to legitimately grow, because I was just in another work situation last year that I couldn't stand after a while that I left. Timmy, we ain't got to talk about that right now. But you know what I'm
talking about? Those messages.
Some of the inside jokes people are gonna like. This is the beginning, but to put a bow on it is basically like I'm identifying people personally that I love what they're doing, and I see a lot of room for growth. And here I think this show could be really, really fun and be really, really good consistently with the network as they, expand, what I mean, into new territory with us being part of it. And so Timmy, your intro, your story, let people know who you are.
So I think one thing we both share is that we really care about our people and like the things that limit them or hinder them or maybe cause them to not reach their goals. So like stuff with your book you like to talk about. So like for me, my whole thing is as a country, the Bahamas, we are the number fluctuates, but the official number is like 350,000 people, which to Americans that might be like a little town, but that's our whole entire country.
That's my block.
So to me, it's like as small of a country, we are mighty. Like the first ever non American girl drafted number one was Michael Sweet Bells Thompson. You guys know him as Clay Thompson's father. The first black man to ever win an Oscar is Sidney Poitier, a Bahamian. We won gold every Olympics. We say we won the Olympics because we win the track. We just won two gold medals last Olympics, and so we won nothing the whole Olympics. We like, yeah, we won the Olympics. So it's like that pride of being a Bahamian. Yes, and if you look at this on the map, we are tiny. If you look at our capital, Nassau, where most of us live, it's literally like a dot compared to the rest of the United States. But we are mighty as a people. So my dream has always been to educate fellow Bahamians and the world about just the type of superstars we have in the arts in the country. So back in like 2012, I used to work on a local radio station, just sports radio, and we used to talk about sports all the time. And I ended up doing a college show with my classmates. We ended up making a media company, photo, video. My full time, I do social media, so I've done social media for both the telecommunications companies over here. The IMAX, we have the biggest IMAX in this side of the world. Yes, bigger than even New York. And I used to work for the franchise of Wendy's Atos. It's called Atos, but it's Wendy's, Marcos, Popeye. So I have social media experience in all facets of like corporate. And like so at Who That, I won a few awards. Who That, I featured like over 100 Bahamians who either sing, dance, write, athletes. I just had Stephen Gardner on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. He won gold at the Olympics in Tokyo. So like I just really care about my country. So that's like my life goal. But of course, life is not always work, 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 work. That burden is so heavy. So of course, in my downtime, I just fucking love basketball. Like I just really enjoy the sport of basketball, and he is my team. I tried to go to a game like as much. I just went to the game last week. I met Ethan for the first time. I met Alex. I've been following Ethan from like 2000. Whenever Twitter was really a thing, like 2010, 2009. Yeah. And I met him for the first time like literally last week at the game. And I remember in July, just talking like we were really just into this. Like we was talking about heat free agency, all of this. And he was like, we should ask Ethan if he get on the site. I mean, it was like a couple of weeks before he got back to us because he's dealing with like summer league and really the big off season. They got Kyle Lowry, and then Ethan was like, we did a call with Ethan. And he's like, like he was not nervous, like we does this, but we just didn't know how we felt. And the call was like, okay, let's go. There's like maybe lasted 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So and there's
a little more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you want to do a report about this? Yeah, okay, let's go.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned Kyle Lowry because, like, as far as like the Heat keep getting guys that I like, and people are going to learn this. I like Jimmy Butler. I have all Bryan teams, which we'll get into on the actual show. But Bam, Jimmy, Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris, even.
The kennel last that they're not called.
Those are my kind of guys. Like I like dogs. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like I don't like overly finesse basketball, for example, et cetera, et cetera.
So like James Harden?
Yeah, I'm not a James Harden guy. We can get into that for another time. I respect his greatness, but it's just not somebody that I would ever, want to build my team around necessarily. Yeah. It's just not. Yeah. It's not really how I do things here. But yeah, and you mentioned the awards. I gotta say, I got some hardware in my. Yeah. I'm not gonna mention that too much about that. But yeah, the people are gonna get to know us. So it's gonna be sports entertainment. Twice a week, we're gonna come at you. And roughly, we're going to try to keep it to half an hour episode.
Yeah, because we'll do our best. Some weeks might be like, because how the NBA going on right now, like so much to talk about.
Yeah, so much to talk. But Timmy's got a family and work. Yeah. I got other things to do. Like we'll try to keep it to half an hour episode because it'll be better for our lives. But sometimes it's just too much to get into.
And I know I get tired of hearing my accent all the time. Like, what the hell is he even saying? So I know I speak fast, and I'm tired tongue, and most of my friends have went off to school, so they spent like 5 or 6 years in the States. I did the college thing here, so I've lived here my whole life. So yeah, I never ever had the code switch. So I have the hard island boy accent. So I know it'll be difficult sometimes. So just bear with me, I know, but me and Bryan talk all the time, so it's nothing.
Yeah. Look, man. Look, if you're really like a real American, You know what I'm saying? Then you embrace Timmy's accent because this country allegedly, you know, wants to say like they're for all people, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to get into the last 5 years, and particularly from 16 to 20 and what that entailed. But look, if you to me, you already know I understand damn near everything you say. You know what I mean? So, and that's the whole thing about this show too. It's like people are going to see like, yeah, we are from two totally different backgrounds, but like there's a lot in common here, right? Like we're just joked about Narcos. We're gonna be talking about a bunch of different Narcos, Insecure.
We had about 2 hours of Insecure. Did you watch last week's episode?
Last week's episode?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you?
I have not. Well, so at the time we're recording this, which I'm not gonna spoil it, but I haven't seen Insecure episode 3. I'll put it to you that way. We're gonna reviewing stuff like that. We're gonna be reviewing stuff like that. We're gonna be definitely Narcos because listen.
This season is, so we talk. I'm not gonna get too deep with our shows we went, but I asked you really about Bad Bunny. And just talk to me about how important the representation is. Like you got star power now.
I mean, look, and that's I guess we'll end it here, right? I guess we'll end it here. Our producer
shout out to David.
Wrote in the chat. I need to start watching Narcos. Yes, you do, David.
So for those who haven't watched it yet, you have to watch the regular Narcos first with Pablo and Cali Cartel. Then you watch next Narcos Mexico.
It's weird because timeline-wise, in terms of like
it happens at the same time. Yeah.
No, like Mexico takes longer to get into the 90s because a lot of that shit happened earlier.
Right.
Yeah, but we're not going to give too much away because we're going to talk about it on the show.
Gotta tease it.
But to put a bow on it, yes. Narcos, Insecure, a whole bunch of other shows. We're going to be trying to get there are a lot of things that we both watched that we'll review. There's a lot of other stuff that Timmy's watched that I haven't, that I've watched that he hasn't, that he's listened to music wise that I haven't, vice versa. We're going to be trying to, get each other to get on the same page and things like that.
We need a name. So if you guys want to give us suggestions, we need a name
for segments and stuff. A lot of cultural stuff we were talking about. You talked about Bad Bunny or whatever, and to put a bow on this, and I think we can end it here, is like the reason 5 reasons sort of in the picture, and like other than what we've said, is that I also appreciate Ethan as a white dude putting on a lot of people of color in his network to reflect South Florida accurately as he wants, but also like now we're in the mix, right? And I think, and for me, I'm somebody who's always trying to put on for, people of color in this industry because of how difficult it is to sort of navigate a lot of these waters. It's going down in Timmy's house now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I finally just reached home. But so we made this joke about these mics. Like I heard when the car, this mic is so good. I heard when the car pulled up, I when the door opened.
Yeah.
But a lot of things happening.
Yeah. So basically, I think there's going to be a lot of fun, and the network itself I think is growing at a rate that's people are really really vibing with it, and we're happy to be a part of it. And you'll be seeing us twice a week. One episode about sports, one episode about non-sports, and we'll keep it to that as best as we could. And that's pretty much it for the premiere. Timmy, if you got anything else to add to take us home, fire away.
No, that's it. I want to wrap up because my house will get a bit noisy. So we'll meet y'all next week.
That's it. We'll see you for the actual premiere.
So this is the pilot. So episode 1 coming next week.
Yes, episode 1 next week. We'll catch y'all.